Okay, welcome everyone to today's SCOMathon coffee break, the Big SCOM Survey results revealed. I'm Richard Benwell. I'm going to be hosting a panel discussion. As you can see, I'm joined by some SCOM experts I'll introduce you to shortly, but we'll be going through over the next 30 or 40 minutes, looking at some of the results we've got from the Big SCOM Survey and just hopefully having a good chat about sort of what that means for the SCOM community, for all of us and the future of SCOM. Just a quick one about the survey. Hopefully everyone who's attending has had an opportunity to fill out the survey and make their voice heard. If you haven't heard of it, just a quick sort of recap. This is the first of what we hope to be an annual survey, just sort of taking the pulse of SCOM and the SCOM community, but as I say, run by SCOMathon, hopefully something we can do on a regular basis and really sort of track how people's opinions and use of SCOM are changing over time, and hopefully also to get an insight into how people are using SCOM and what some SCOM best practices are. We asked 27 questions. We've had 118 respondents, which is fantastic. Hopefully we'll get some more in future years as people sort of hear more about the survey. And today we're going to talk through the results with our expert panel. What we'll also do is publish a recording of this webinar and also a full write-up of the results. So if there's more you want to learn about this, there will be sort of more coming. We'll do a full write-up. We'll share all the results and analysis of the survey. So hopefully sort of lots to learn from the results. To introduce our panel, I'm surrounded by 5 SCOM experts with some vast experience with SCOM. So we have Christian from NICE, I'm sure you all know, producers of an Office 365 management pack, Oracle, VMware, and probably a dozen or so others. I can't list them all. Harold from Silex Software, best known I think for their MP Author and MP Studio tools, so with vast amount of experience. Stoyan, you've probably sort of seen and read some of his blogs, Microsoft MVP, blogger and all-round good SCOM guy. Nathan, who works for Microsoft, probably best known for his security expertise and the security management pack, which I think is seen as a bit of a must-have for your SCOM environment. All of his security expertise bottled up in an awesome management pack for SCOM. So thanks for joining us, Nathan. And Dujon, System Center architect, a man of many talents, published author, a blogger, and creator of the SCOM Management Pack Creator, it's kind of new sort of PowerShell Management Pack sort of authoring tool, which is worth sort of checking out as well. So thanks everyone for joining us. Look forward to hearing your responses to the survey results as we go through them. And of course, it's not just these expert panelists. Hopefully we would like to hear back from you guys on the webinar as well. If you're joining us live, there's that link again to the Slack channel. I'm just going to flick over to it. Essentially, you can have a good chat here, express your opinion. If you have filled out the survey, perhaps you can help the experts here on interpreting some of the results. So please do say hi on that Slack channel, and we'll keep the conversation going beyond the webinar as well. All right, so with those intros, let me just come back to the slides and we'll get going. So the results are in, as I say, about 118 responses. And we started with looking at you, who you are, and your SCOM environment. And the first question we asked, or one of the first questions we asked, was how long you've been using SCOM. So kind of nice, easy one to start off with, a good spread of results. We have people who are fairly new to it, the 1 to 3 years. So 7 to 10 seems to be about the median, and then we've got some long-termers. I picked out a couple of the text responses here. So since MON 2000, 19 years back to MON 2000. People are very proud to have been working with SCOM since Microsoft Operations Manager and since it was MOM at the beginning. I thought this would be a good opportunity to say hi to each of our panelists, ask how long they've been working with SCOM and when they first encountered it. So I've got Nathan in my top left. So Nathan, you work for Microsoft. Have you been there all along, or was SCOM something you sort of picked up more recently?
SCOM is actually something I picked up more recently. I started before Microsoft in 2013. I was asked to do a 2012 SP1 rollouts, replacing 2007 with my company, and about a year later I joined Microsoft as a SCOM PFE. So
Cool, nice. There you go. And as I say, you've sort of probably written one of the more recent kind of management packs that have come out of that group. You know, sort of Microsoft engineers with the security management.
It's all self-taught too, so I don't consider myself a very good author.
Cool, great stuff. Thank you, Harold. Silect have been around since the dawn of SCOM, I'm sure. Have you been working with SCOM since MOM 2000?
Well, we've been working, yeah. So we've been around since 2003. We started working with MOM 2000, and in fact, if memory serves, I did some work prior to Silect with what was the product which ultimately became MOM 2000. I think it was another vendor's product at the time. So yeah, we've been at it for a while. Obviously, we're focused on helping our customers really drive more value out of that SCOM platform, and happy to be part of today's session.
Cool, thanks, Harold. Dujon, you're next in my line. You look too youthful to have been working with MOM 2000. Tell me it's more recent.
Yeah, I first worked on SCOM 2019. No one's gonna believe that. No, no. The first version of SCOM I worked on was 2007. And that was back in about 2009. So I've been working with SCOM for about 12 years or so.
Yeah. And how did you come across SCOM?
So I was doing a project back in 2009. That was one of the first system sensor products I actually worked on between SCOM 2007 and Virtual Machine Manager 2008 at the same time. So yeah, it was a good learning experience from there, and been working with SCOM ever since.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for joining us today. And Christian, again, I'm sure NICE have been around for, for decades. Go on, tell us a little bit how you got into SCOM.
Yeah, actually, I got started with SCOM when it became a real product, as I said, because that was at the time of 2007 R2 when it supported non-Windows systems. So because that was the history. So, and this was the first release that supported actually Linux. And so we said, well, now it's enterprise ready. And that at the time I picked up SCOM and wrote the first management packs actually.
Awesome, nice stuff. And Stoyan, I'm not sure, when have you been there since the beginning? You've got a bit of youth in you as well. It's not 2000, surely.
No, actually not. I have the least experience from all the lineup here. So I started with SCOM in 2014, I think, with 2012 R2. But since then, I'm almost working only with SCOM, so I was able to really catch up all the years in advance.
Brilliant stuff. Good. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everyone. And as I say, lots of experience in there. Yeah, no one who has picked it up with SCOM 2019, but it looks like on the survey results we did have a couple who are fairly new to SCOM. So it's kind of great to see a good set of results. All right then, so let's get into the survey proper. We were sort of asking people about their environment, sort of size of SCOM, and some of the features of it. First question here was how many management groups you have in your environment, which is sort of, I guess, to expected. One is fairly common. Two, they've got so one prod and test, and scaling up to this, we had to kind of broke the graph. We kind of got up to 50 and 100, and then someone answering 453. So I'm going to put it to my panelists. Any ideas why someone would have had 453 SCOM management groups?
I was hoping for a typo, but truthfully, I'm guessing they're a managed service provider or something like that. They've got multiple customers.
Yeah, there are. So,
yeah,
there are a few organisations who offer SCOM as a service. So perhaps it was one of those. Harold, sorry, what was that?
No, I was saying that basically echoing the comments before. It's got to be a managed service provider with that many management groups.
All right, good. Well, so we think it's that. It's not like running. I have heard. I mean, there's people who sort of run almost a one box management groups, you know, for very sort of isolated environments, but hopefully it's still not getting up to 453. I'm going to switch over to the Slack channel and just see if the person who answered 453 is on Slack. If you are, please let us know. It'd be great to find out why you're running 453 management groups and how you do it. So please let us know. That'd be really cool to hear. All right, coming back to the slides. So we'll sort of see 1, 2, 3 is pretty normal in terms of management groups, and then how many SCOM agents. So kind of really sort of working out the size of your SCOM environment. I think it's kind of quite an interesting result just because of the spread. We see 1 to 1,000 being sort of dominant there, and we've broken that down into sort of the hundreds, just below 1,000 there. But you know, sort of seeing sort of the 3, 4 to 500 and upwards being quite common, but also sort of the scale. I'm not actually sure what the largest was, but it was into the tens of thousands. But so again, to sort of the panelists, what sort of environments do you generally work with? Is it the hundreds or the thousands or the tens of thousands?
So I actually see very large management groups, like I think the largest over really 20,000 agents in one management group. So obviously purely Windows, because on Linux that doesn't scale. So the largest Linux and Unix combined environments around like 4,000 or 5,000 agents. And then typically that's where you add additional management groups, one for Linux 1, Linux 2, and then later combine them again. So because obviously Linux workloads is much more heavy on the management group than Windows. But yeah, we see quite big ones actually.
Do you hit limits sort of with the like the database infrastructure or the management servers? Where are the limits in number of agents?
Well, we even with 20,000, this all runs on hardware, on always on clusters, on a real big hardware with gigabytes of memory, and it's not virtualized.
All right, cool. Any other experiences of either large or small environments, guys? No, no one's going to top Christian's 20,000. All right, cool. let's move on. In terms of some number of people in the team, I think sort of this is probably quite a spread of results as well. So this is just charting number of people in the team versus the number of agents you have in your environment with a bit of a sort of trend line in the middle there. So I guess sort of, you know, below the trend line, you're doing quite well with a small number. Obviously, there's a number of people with one person, even one person managing what looks like about sort of 12,000 agents there, versus perhaps some larger teams with some relatively sort of smaller environments. So I don't know whether that sort of reflects the individual sort of organisation's investment in monitoring. I think I hear that a lot with the customers I speak to. You get organisations where it's just half a person. I think someone put down 0. You know, there's no one actually dedicated to them, which isn't that unusual. You know, versus some organisations that really take monitoring seriously and have a team sort of centred around that. All right, so I'll move on to the next question. Versions of SCOM that you run in production. So we have what that's sort of just under half SCOM 2019, so the latest version. Some running SCOM 1801, 1807 when they switched to the sort of semi-annual releases. 2016 still being sort of fairly common, and 2012 R2. And I've just realised we've actually had the green drop off the list, which would have been that much earlier version. I don't know whether that's SCOM 2007. Does that reflect what you guys see in the real world? Is there any reasons for running kind of multiple flavors or obstacles to upgrading?
Well, I see an obstacle for some of our customers that's still using SCOM 2012 R2 is support for Linux distributions that are still in the environment. And if the customer upgrades, they could not support them anymore. So they actually stay there until they're moved out the Linux version, or eventually spin up a separate management group that stays on the old one and put up a new one if they can. So, but I think agent support, from my perspective, is one topic.
For me, it was also a bit surprising that there is a pretty large number of customers who are still running 2012 R2. That's really very interesting, because monitoring almost all the workloads is also done by SCOM 2016. So there is almost no difference between 2016 or 2012 R2 when it comes to the different monitored workloads.
I've seen some organizations that have some legacy systems which have business critical applications, which for a lot of reasons they can't remove. So some of them are even still running as low as SCOM 2007, and even very few MOM 2005 as well. So it's not really surprising. Pretty old though.
I've seen it Microsoft related too. I believe we cut out support for Server 2008 with 2012 R2, and so if you go to 2016, you're gonna have issues with the agent running on 2008 systems and whatnot. So similar to the Linux and Unix and those types of things.
Okay. Are
Yeah,
the management packs also a criteria for running another version of SCOM?
The agent is the issue.
Agents.
I mean, yeah, so you can actually download the, and this could be old information, so I apologize here. I'm more in the cyber community these days than SCOM, but I think you can download the Microsoft monitoring agent from Azure, and that'll run on 2008. But the newer versions of the SCOM agent from the SCOM management server itself is not supported. And so there are some issues associated with that I think can be blockers to upgrade if you've got critical 2008 systems, which you shouldn't, but that's a different issue.
I guess it's purely just from the point of view, there's people running 1801 and 8207. That is just a matter of finding time to run an upgrade, right? You know, sort of scheduling that in and putting that as a priority in projects. I'm not sure how often people do upgrade. You know, whether it's sort of, you know, every few years, or they sort of leave it like 5 years for a refresh. But you know, kind of clearly there's no reason to not be upgrading to SCOM 2019, I guess, apart from just the effort.
Yeah, well, I think the effort is one part, because we have one case where we have a customer with about 90 management servers, and they want to do a side-by-side. That means they need quite a number of resources actually to set up a separate environment. So when they have to actually put new hardware in there to actually build a separate one up there. So then to do the side-by-side migration. So it's definitely also one of the effort.
Yeah, and I guess sort of is there a compelling feature, you know, compelling reason to upgrade or need? Is there something in SCOM 2019 that you guys would cite as a sort of a you know, high value feature that customers want to get an upgrade to?
You might not like that, but the HTML5. That's
Console, yeah. Good point. Okay, on that note, I'll move on. All right, so SCOM best practices, that's kind of who the audience were, so the size of environments that we have running in SCOM, and then just sort of looking at sort of how you run your environment, what tools you use. So first question up here is where SCOM's hosted, i.e. sort of the core infrastructure, not the agents. We asked whether that was on the cloud or on-prem. I think certainly in my experience, I know some of our larger organizations who are doing a large scale sort of lift and shift to Azure, for example, they've decided to run SCOM up in Azure as well. But I think this was a surprise that there's really very few people who are running SCOM up in Azure itself. Any thoughts on this, guys, in terms of whether that's the sort of trend we're going to see more up in Azure?
Well, I can jump in and say that you know, I know Microsoft is releasing a project Aquila, which is going to be running in the cloud, a software as a service version of SCOM that's supposed to integrate directly with Azure Monitor and that kind of thing. I'm not terribly surprised. What you're really seeing is that, at least I think for actual, you know, VM monitoring or whatnot, SCOM, in my opinion, is a superior product to Azure Monitor, which, and those tend to be on site. So, or hosted VMs in the cloud, but they tend to keep the infrastructure on site. So it doesn't surprise me too much, at least in terms of the results. But I could see them going to VMs in the cloud, but it really comes down to how much does it cost you to run it on-prem versus in the cloud, and you know, that whole ROI decision. So.
So you mentioned Project Aquila there. I think that comes up later in some of the results.
Oh, sorry, did I get ahead of that? Sorry about that.
But what do we know about that? We've probably got a lot of people on the call that do know a fair bit about it. I know there's been just sort of some sort of leaks, you know, and sort of limited information. We had Microsoft on a SCOMathon last year, actually, I think, sort of presenting about it, just sort of kind of broadly. What do we know that we we think is public knowledge and everyone is allowed to know?
Actually, a blog came out in November 2020, and a public blog which actually described some of the main features of Aquila. It even mentions the code name of the project. It mentions that, for example, Aquila will support container-based deployment. It will also be compatible with SCOM running on premises. It will help ease the migration process from on-premise to Azure, and also that there will be some kind of integration with Azure Monitor. So those informations are actually already public. Yeah, it will be really very interesting to see what part of this will come out to be true.
Yeah. And yeah, the basic premise is Project Aquila is SCOM running in NAS, right, as a service offered by Microsoft. I think one of the most exciting things about that is that something big's happening with SCOM, right? That you've got Microsoft investing in SCOM and sort of taking it forward, which I think we've all been sort of keen to see over the years. So what comes out of it? Well, I guess there's still a question mark, but it's really exciting to see that they're investing and sort of looking at modernising SCOM and bringing it forward. So we will see more of that later, I think, in the survey. In terms of asking people what they use SCOM to monitor, I think probably no surprises here. Just kind of looking at the results, it's all your sort of main Microsoft stack, Windows Server, SQL IIS, Active Directory, Exchange, server hardware. I think Nathan, when we spoke, you talked about how SCOM comes bundled with, or you can have available as part of the bundle you get from Microsoft a bunch of server hardware management packs. Was that right?
You can get them through Dell and HP and whatnot.
Right.
Although typically it involves purchasing a support contract to, at least with HP, I know it does. I'm not quite sure on Dell. But no, we don't do a whole. I should say some hardware. We do have some SNMP hardware, that kind of stuff that we've got baked in, but that's probably about it.
Yeah. It's sort of the free management packs you get from the hardware vendors themselves. And then Linux, I guess Christian, that's your joy to see that that Linux is the first non-Microsoft piece there across the stack. That does work quite well. I mean, I often see a sort of 70-30 mix, 70% Microsoft, 30% Linux in kind of a regular organization. I guess are there organizations that primarily use it for Linux monitoring, or is it always just a sort of an add-on to Microsoft monitoring?
Well, I have seen it primarily as an add-on, but one note on that is actually that we should not forget that Linux is really important for Microsoft when it comes to Azure, because more than half of the workloads on Azure run on Linux. So actually the support of the agent got much better and much more improvements over the last years in SCOM than actually the Microsoft Windows agent. So also the integration piece and the log file monitoring. So it's been a bit unnoticed, I think, but it's robust now, much more robust than earlier, and has also new features in there, new security concepts in place. So I think that's also driving the adoption in some enterprises.
Cool, thank you. All right, what other tools do you use? I think sort of we all know that typically IT operations teams work with a whole swathe of different tools. I think this sort of reflects my experience broadly, so SolarWinds, Splunk being sort of very popular as well, Nagios often, VMware vCenter. I guess all the talk of public clouds, most organizations running SCOM have large on-prem investments, and that's kind of primarily on VMware, I'm sure still. Azure Monitor, I guess sort of good to see that people are counting that as another tool running alongside SCOM. But as we mentioned with Project Tequila, I think real desire to see them come together a bit more. And then we asked which third-party management packs, sort of paid-for management packs, do you use? And I think sort of putting this in the survey, we expected to see a really kind of good range, and this was quite a surprising result. That actually that is the majority, over half, saying none. They don't put a paid-for management packs on top of their SCOM environment, which I think is, for me, it's a bit of a surprise, maybe a bit of a disappointment. I always sort of thought, SCOM was viewed as a bit more of a platform that you can extend and build on, but it does seem here that people really sort of focus on those Microsoft technology stacks that SCOM specializes in. And then sort of second there, Veeam for VMware being very popular. Any kind of thoughts on this, guys? Is this sort of what you see as well? Christian, you sell management packs, So
yeah, I would have lived on the left side all the way, right? So right, yeah, we have so many management packs, so that's why we probably a bit scattered across this. So we do VMware and Office 365, and we do others like the Logfile MP, the Oracle MP, which is on here. So yeah, so VMware is obviously top. So we have also seen this on what type of workloads do you monitor, and Veeam is in this market since ages, and also has a lot of customers for their backup solutions, so they integrate with that, and then also the management pack for the backup. So they're I say the second highest on the rank, and then the 5 and others on there from HiQ. So there are, but still, I think the community is quite strong in delivering solutions, and they're bright and smart people out there to build their own management packs as well. And there's a great library for PowerShell-based management packs. So I think that's also all the part you have to consider. It's just like when it comes to paying, it's also kind of important. Do you need support for that? Do you need to call somebody to help? And then typically it's like when it opens for vendor where you pay for.
Yeah, I'm sure I'd say so many organizations are writing their own management packs. You mentioned Veeam, been in the game for a long time, that you don't see and hear much of them now, even though they still have the sort of very popular management pack. But yeah, sort of OpsLogix have VMware one, NICE have the VMware one. I was also going to highlight, the sort of Citrix one being sort of quite popular here, and of course then Gripmatics have sort of come out with a Citrix management pack that's proving to be quite popular as well. So still new management packs coming out, still many options there. But I'd either sort of not sort of willingness to pay for them, or just not the need for them, meaning that many people just stick with the ones they get out of the box with Microsoft. So authoring, talking about writing your own management packs, what do you use to author custom monitoring? So the SCOM console authoring, which I guess gives quite sort of kind of limited authoring capabilities, Visual Studio authoring extensions being then sort of quite sort of power tool, and Select MP Studio probably sort of somewhere in between. I guess MP Studio is more than just an authoring tool. Is that right, Harold? We didn't ask about MP Author separately, so maybe that's where the other is. Do you want to talk through the authoring options here?
Yeah, certainly. MP Author is a far more commonly used tool for authoring management packs. MP Studio provides some other capabilities and is of course a licensed tool. Mm-hmm. But I think what a lot of people are doing, I think as Christian touched on, there's a lot of great resources that are available, and there are some great resources on Git. There's a lot of fragments, and we're seeing a big uptick in the adoption of fragments to help with authoring. Certainly, Visual Studio authoring extensions does a great job of leveraging those fragments. And so I think we're seeing an awful lot of great community resources that are, I think eating into a little bit the need for organizations to go out and purchase licensed products.
Cool. Right. Thank you. All right. What next?
Just chip in. Sorry, Richard. So they're just on the Slack channel. So they're voting for Notepad++, which is missing there. Just get some.
So. Need to expand the other. We'll put that on the survey for next year. Cool. Thanks, Christian. So how do you tune management packs? I think we asked this question for a couple of reasons. One, we have sort of Cookdown have EasyTune out there as a free tool, and especially with sort of EasyTune 2 coming out. Also, obviously, we hear about tuning SCOM being really kind of the #1 pain point, and an issue with it being too noisy. So sort of interesting here that yes, people are still using the SCOM console. You do have options, either sort of those authoring options or EasyTune, or you just don't bother tuning your management packs, which I guess is an option. It's maybe something that there's still room for improvement on. Hopefully next year we'll see more adoption of EasyTune and sort of other methods to get tuning under control. And we also asked about dashboards and reports. I think it's going to come up later in the survey about people's sort of wishes and desires for features in SCOM. Nice to see SquaredUp there. Great. Obviously still a lot of reliance on SCOM Operations Console, Reporting Console, and Web Console, Power BI coming in there as well. But I think sort of clearly, people are still looking to the native tools for a lot of their dashboards and reporting needs, and still an area where I think sort of SCOM falls a bit short out of the box compared to other monitoring tools these days. Again, maybe there's something interesting there coming with Project Aquila if SCOM's going to be integrated more into the Azure portal. We'll see what they have. All right, and then sort of looking ahead a bit. So this is sort of a few questions asking around kind of people's projections of how they're using SCOM going forward. So what do we have here? I guess this is probably sort of the good news slide. How do you expect your use of SCOM to change over the next year? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk over the last few years around whether SCOM was going to be replaced with Azure Monitor, which didn't really sort of turn out to be quite the case. There's still a lot of pressure on SCOM from other tools and sort of changing technology space. So how do you expect your use of SCOM to change over the year? The good news, well over half saying they're going to grow their use of SCOM, probably most of the rest saying stay the same, and sort of a minority saying they're going to reduce their use of SCOM. So I think that's really good news. We've pulled out a few quotes here just to sort of reflect, some of the answers. I think this probably was the top one. So internal and cloud expansion. So still growing in data center and still growing the number of VMs and so on in Azure and the cloud, and hence looking to grow the use of SCOM for monitoring those, which is great to see. I think it's a really nice sentiment here. It looks like Microsoft is finally giving more love to SCOM, and customers feel that. Couldn't help putting in just a shameless plug for SquaredUp here. So people like the fancy dashboards, and that sort of encourages more use. I think, sort of plug aside, I think that's when you get things right with SCOM, SCOM's more appreciated, right? We all know that actually sort of SCOM can be just seen as sort of a tool that just sends out lots of email alerts and doesn't quite give the value that people want from a modern monitoring solution these days. But certainly when you do get it right, there's great demand for it. This one's an interesting one. Certainly when I'm kind of speaking to customers, there is certainly more talk of consolidating their monitoring tool set. I know we all have lived with the idea of tool sprawl for many years. I think now maybe a bit more sort of budget pressure and a bit more strategic outlook on new technologies, then organizations are reviewing their set of monitoring tools. And here it's kind of a vote for SCOM, saying that it's in this case the easiest to integrate with ServiceNow, and hence it looks like they're keeping it. Does this sort of answers reflect what you guys are seeing? Are people doubling down on SCOM, or are they starting to look at other options?
I think you said it already, Richard. Microsoft is showing love for SCOM, and I think they sent already a clear message that SCOM will be further developed and also maintained. Something which we were missing for a couple of years, and this is no surprise that they gained back the trust of the users. And yeah, I think that's the reason why we see the bigger grow part.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a roadmap for SCOM. I think we're seeing a roadmap for some management packs coming out of Microsoft as well, which is really encouraging for the community and for us all.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's probably sort of summarised at the end here as well. Has support from Microsoft and from third parties as well. So hopefully with sort of SCOMathon, massive virtual event last year, that was kind of really a nice vote of confidence. Really to show that there's a large audience out there that really wants SCOM to succeed still, right? We've all invested a lot of our time, as an expert panel here, and I know probably the audience have invested a lot of their time in SCOM. It's great to see it still have a good strong future. The next slide, I did sort of put some balance in here, and I've just sort of pulled out a couple of quotes from sort of stay the same and the reduce. I thought what was interesting here is sort of a bit of a split between whether SCOM is the right tool to monitor the cloud or not, right? So on the previous slide, you had people saying we're going to grow our usage of SCOM because we're investing in cloud and sort of growing our adoption of cloud, and then you've got people sort of saying the opposite, which is we're growing our cloud adoption and SCOM's not the right tool. So again, probably comes back to that sort of Project Tequila. I guess Microsoft have recognised that they need to make sure SCOM is relevant to those resources that are being deployed up into Azure specifically. So generally really good news there. And I guess reflected here, so we asked how long do you expect to continue using SCOM? So again, majority 5+ years, which is sort of fantastic news. 2 to 5 years coming in next, and 1 to 2 years again, sort of a minority. No one looking to move off it within the year. Looking at the sort of 5+ years, I guess I'm thinking SCOM 2019 had 5 years of mainstream support and 5 years of extended support. So if people are looking to invest in SCOM sort of beyond 5 years, should they be sort of expecting or hoping for another long-term stable branch coming out with that 5 + 5 years? When might we next expect a version of SCOM coming out?
I think Microsoft announced this in 2019 as the System Center 2019 version has been released, that the new or the future System Center releases will be aligned to the Windows Server releases. So I think we can expect the next System Center version when we get the next Windows Server version. I think in 1 or 2 years, most probably.
Okay.
It depends on the roadmap, of course.
All right. So from your point of view, Stoyan, that's still the plan from Microsoft. They're kind of keeping track with Windows Server.
I don't see why they will change that. So they announced this officially 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
I'm really expecting that, yeah, this is the case.
Yeah.
And
Great.
I'm really very curious to see what the next version will be like.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right, so yeah, hopefully another sort of 5 + 5 years of support coming then from a future version of SCOM when Windows Server comes out as well. All right, and then sort of finishing off, just spend sort of 5 to 10 minutes just sort of finishing off on some questions where we sort of asked people a bit more about their sort of kind of opinion of things. First one was, where do you seek out information and support for SCOM? So nice to see blogs still being really the mainstay of where people get their information. So Stoyan, got an awesome blog. Dujan, you got a lot on your site, I know. So fantastic to know that we've still got sort of community support coming out there in the form of blogs. Please do keep it up, guys. Community forums, we've got community answers on SquaredUp, and the Q&A forums that got a refresh on Microsoft's site are great to see. Webinars, hopefully a bit like this one with SCOMathon. And of course, social media use groups and some vendor events. So, but yeah, nice to see blogs still being a common place for people to turn. I'm sure top blogs apart from your own, top blogs for a SCOM community. Any favourites?
Kevin Holman has a great blog on all things authoring, plus a whole bunch of other great stuff.
There you go. Perhaps that's what everyone was voting for. Just it's 45 respondents saying Kevin Holman's blog. We'll put that on the site here and see how many votes back.
Even if you threw Kevin out, though, there's still a lot of really good content out there. You know, I know Matthew Long, who some of the stuff he's put out there. He doesn't write much, but when he does, it's like, oh wow, this is really good. You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff. But Tyson Paul's another one that puts stuff out on his personal blog. Hugh Scott, same. The monitoring guys now that they kind of. There's a lot of really good stuff out there. Even if Kevin is not writing tomorrow, there's still a ton of good stuff out there.
Yeah. You know, and so going back to probably the first question, right? We have still people working with SCOM who have just been working with it for like nearly 20 years now, right? Sort of a vast amount of experience, and the likes of Stoyan who are newer to SCOM, right? But just absolutely dedicated to it. So I guess that, yeah, plenty of expertise coming out, which is wonderful. All right, okay, so the sort of acid test question on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend SCOM to a friend or colleague? Maybe you're down the pub talking to your mates, and SCOM comes up in conversation and you thoroughly recommend it. Or maybe it's just sort of a hypothetical question of whether you'd recommend SCOM. And I think it's kind of a really good news story here as well. Obviously, the vast majority of votes being up there at 8, 9, and 10. And actually, the format of the question is a standard format to work out something called the Net Promoter Score. So your 9 and 10s are promoters, your 6 and lowers are detractors, and you take the percentage of promoters and minus the percentage of detractors, and you get a Net Promoter Score. So SCOM comes out at 37, which is just on the scale here that we've used from Retently, just basically a great product, right? 0 to 30 is good. Above 30, you're getting into kind of great product territory, and 70 is the likes of Apple and other sort of kind of fanatical sort of followers of brands like that. So 37 is a great score. Hopefully, this is a score that we can track over time. So if we repeat this survey in a year's time, I'm going to be sort of fascinated by some of the changes and trends that we'll see over the years with SCOM. All right, last question. Deliberately a bit of a splurge of results here. We asked people what additional features would you like to see added to SCOM, and man, we got a lot of responses. So we haven't sort of dug through them entirely, but there's a list there for you to have a squint at on your screen and see some of the results. I just summarised with, I guess, 2 that sort of come through loud and clear, really, in different forms. One is this unification of SCOM and Azure, so this desire for SCOM to be able to do more with Azure and Azure Monitor. And again, we've mentioned Project Aquila now a good number of times. I think that was even mentioned specifically by a couple of people. So really looking forward to that, I think. Looking forward to some more integration there. You've got sort of cloud Azure monitoring integration and so on. Better integration with Azure monitoring tools. So obviously Microsoft have heard that. SCOM and Azure Monitor become one product, so hopefully we'll see what Microsoft have in store for us this year soon. And then of course the other one is sort of better console, so speed, monitoring, reporting, dashboarding. Definitely sort of focus on sort of the out-of-the-box capability. So I'm not sure whether Microsoft have much coming there. Obviously you do have options like SquaredUp on top of it, but certainly people feel like that's needed to modernize SCOM is to get those dashboards and reports in. I guess so. Yeah. Final question, guys. Anything you see here that sort of takes your interest, or any kind of insights into what has come out in SCOM recently, or is coming out over the next year or so? What do we know about the future of SCOM and the features that are coming?
Actually, there are two records, auditing of overrides here, which are actually already covered with the UR2 for SCOM 2019. So as most of you probably know, UR2 introduced auditing in form of management pack history, also auditing of some management pack objects, and very important overrides tracking. So this is already the case. If you have SCOM 2019, just make sure you install update rollup 2, and you'll have those features.
Great. So whoever responded saying the auditing is really missing and SCOM is really lacking, it's hope they're happy. They just need to upgrade to SCOM 2019. And I think, did you say there's some more coming in UR3 with auditing?
Yeah, that was a conversation I had with the product team last year. That there was, and I don't know if it's formally announced, so take that for a grain of salt, but there was additional auditing capabilities that they were hoping to add with UR3. Most of it was in UR2 for the record, but there was some additional stuff they wanted to put out there, and I believe that's targeted, late next month, I think, for release.
Christian, so the Unix Linux support comes up a lot. Do you think Microsoft are there with it, or do you think they've still got a way to go?
Oh, well, that's a good topic, because actually the Linux part for x86 is rock solid and working, and it's being maintained because that's where the Azure infrastructure runs on. So we actually just heard recently that they're discontinuing the Linux on Power. So that's not long on there. So we actually we have a replacement management pack for that. So that's for Linux on Power. So if anybody is there, this is something that would be taken by the community. Actually, it's also for those who are interested in building something. It's all the Linux agents are open source, right? Everybody can take the whole code from GitHub and build it themselves on any platform, even on Linux for mainframe. And these exotic platforms, they're dropping a bit off the cliff right now. So and for Unix, Solaris and HPUX don't have a big futures, to be honest. AIX is the only one that will be still there, but as AIX is not that widely used in Microsoft environments, we saw it on the other slide. If you paid attention, for paid third-party management pack, AIX was on there. Obviously, it's not paid. It's a Microsoft provided management pack for AIX, but it's also running on Power. So that's really like a corner port. But still, Linux is widespread, and I expect more adoption. There's also with Docker and everything that runs on that, and OpenShift environment to be monitored. So I expect to see more on that as well.
All right. Fantastic. Any other sort of kind of closing remarks on sort of what's coming, features in SCOM before we wrap up, guys?
Yeah, maybe I add to that. The most asked features on user voice, and also you see it in this list, is a management pack for Microsoft 365, from Microsoft. So we know that there's a community solution, that there's one from Microsoft, which is very shallow, which basically takes just in the information. Plus, from NICE, we provide like a professional management pack that does all the monitoring for teams and so on. And now Microsoft is about to announce also one. And I think, Richard, you have also some additional information for that.
Yeah, cool, great point. The Office 365 came up, yeah, a couple of times there. So yeah, certainly lots of activity in that area. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Fantastic to get your feedback. Kind of a wrap up there, as I say. This is just our first Big SCOM survey. Hopefully, we'll have another repeat this time next year, and we'll have you guys back to comment on that. Hopefully, with then looking at how it's changed over the year, especially with, I think, probably plenty of SCOM news ahead of us for 2021. So lots to look out for. In fact, even of course, SCOMathon 2021 coming up. So we'll have another chance to discuss this all at SCOMathon this year. But thank you, Nathan, Harold, Dijon, Kristen, and Stoyan. Thank you for your time and your feedback. Thanks everyone for joining us, and stay tuned. Just as Christian said, I'm just going to finish off with a plug for the next coffee break, which is actually going to look at the O365 management pack coming out from Microsoft there. So I hope you get an insight into what's coming for Office 365 monitoring. All right, thanks all. Have a fantastic day. Thanks again for your time, and take care. All right, bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Cheers. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.